Wise Root says, I just want to meet a man that gives me butterflies belly, and he will have that same feeling, that simple, yet it's hard to find. Yeah, I mean, here's one of those things, right? It is difficult to find. And that's why I suggest that you date in abundance. Because when you date in abundance, Wise Root, what ends up happening is you find that there's different things that you like and there's different things that you don't like. Like most women that I talk to, they're like, I want to be head over heels, completely in love with a man. But what they find is when they're in situations like that, they often ignore red flags. They often, like do things that they wouldn't normally do because they're so head over heels in love with a guy. They ignore things that they wouldn't normally ignore. They act in ways that don't really make a whole lot of sense. And what a lot of women have found, and what I've seen over and over and over again, is that it's actually better to be in a situation where a guy is a little bit more into you than you are into him, because then you'll have more control over over your dating life and over what's going on in the situation. You'll be able to think better instead of just being so, I call it love drunk, right? You're so love drunk. You got the love drunk glasses on and you're like, hey, this guy's so amazing. I just love him to pieces, right? And you're just like, and you just go crazy over a guy. And you can do that. And, if you're coming from a really healthy and strong space, it's not a problem. But if you've had a lot of problems in the past, you might not want to be as love drunk if you can't really trust yourself to be smart about the situation and do what's best for you in the situation. So, I mean, that's a very valid point. I think that's what most people want, is they want to be just like, you're into somebody and they're into you, and you both are like, right. And what ends up happening a lot of times, especially with people getting hurt and all that kind of stuff, is that they're a lot more hesitant to really get into a relationship or be with somebody, especially when they feel that, right? A lot of people, they realize when they feel that, and this is actually true for me too, is that whenever I've felt like really just totally head over heels in love with a girl, I've like in the past, I had some like really bad situations where I was like, well, she's toxic and she's toxic and she's toxic. And so I was like, so if I'm head over heels in love, there's a really high probability chance that this person's toxic, because that's not, maybe it's something to do with my blueprint, or, the way that, because, I came from a background where both of my parents kind of like walked out of my life when I was around 13, and both, they were divorced. And so they like passed me around a little bit and then sent me to go live with my grandma. And so I have a lot of like weird blueprints and models for relationships when I was growing up. And so when I get like really head over heels in love, it's like, maybe I should calm down a little bit, take some breaths, figure out what's going on, maybe make myself feel a little bit less, right? Because you can actually control that to a certain extent. And if you pull yourself out of the situation, allow yourself to calm down, because what they found is that all these chemicals are actually basically just drugs, right? And you get like drunk on these drugs, you get high on these drugs. And if you pull yourself out of it, you can actually wean yourself down so that you can start looking at it from a smarter standpoint. And I know that was kind of a rant, but I hope that makes sense there, Wise Root. I hope that makes sense for you. I hope it makes sense for you.